perspective. So what we actually mean here is the management of airport operations. Now, as far as the slides or the topics that we discussed today are concerned, in fact, I don't think there is anything that I'm introducing new today, because we have almost gone through all the related functions of airports, or whatever activities go on the airport, primarily on the air side and the land side, and we have seen what it means from the customer perspective, what it means from the manager. Now, what we are now going to look at is about some of the issues that are related in the coordination of all these operations. So what we mean here is from the management perspective, uh, a discussion of the airport operations. Quite often, because of the multitude of organizational stakeholders, multitude in the sense the different categories, and more importantly, the diversity of categories of stakeholders, of the users of airport. We have already seen the stakeholders, the various stakeholders, which include the passengers, the airline companies, the staff, security staff, the administrative staff, etc., who all are constantly in connection related to the functioning of the airport. So, and each of them, we have also discussed that separately. Each of them has a different set of functions to carry out. Each of them has a set of priorities that they needs to satisfy, and because of that, each of them will have the significantly different operational requirements. So what we mean by the multitude of organizational stakeholders is the diversity of the roles, the diversity of functions, the diversity of requirements, and the diversity of priorities of the various stakeholders. So because of this large sort of diversity, usually the role of an airport general manager, the one who is in charge of all the operations, is usually compared to that of a mayor of a city. Now, mayor of a city, as we know, is a role, an elected representative who has a lot of functions to oversee. That is several aspects of the functioning of the airport. So, though in the Indian context, a mayor is not probably as strongly functionally supervising many of the activities, but he or she certainly has a lot of responsibilities related to making sure that all the necessary resources in terms of in terms of manpower and money is available to ensure that all the functions related to the city go on well. So when you say the functions related to the function the city, it requires it involves a lot of things like infrastructure, the roads, the public transport, systems that support the public transport, law and order, a lot of other things also. So power, the distribution of electric power, etc. So a mayor is a person who has to ensure that all the systems, or rather there are systems in place to make sure that everything is going on well. In a sense, the role of an airport manager, because of the diversity of functions, is usually comparable to that of a mayor of the that of the mayor of a city, though of course to a probably a smaller scale. And as we have seen earlier, the stakeholders, when we talk about them, they involve the government agencies, airlines, ground handling companies, cargo companies, oil companies, etc. For I mean, who are in charge of supply of the refuel, for the fuel for the refueling and storage, etc. And then ground transport, a lot of other functions, and the passengers. So all these have to be managed appropriately, and that's what we mean by airport operations management. So The moment you say that there is a lot of diversity in the roles and preferences and priorities, etc., it becomes even more important to have a proper coordination of all that, because necessarily there will be several conflicting requirements. So unless there is an external means, an external role which makes sure that there is mutual coordination, then if it's not there, then things can go haywire. So airport managers are responsible for running their own specific departments as they work closely with the different state and federal committees. We'll go to that later. So when we say airport managers, the managers who are in charge of the different aspects of functioning, different aspects of the functioning of the airport, say like the apron management or management of the terminal activities, management of the ground side activities, management of the security staff, etc. So all that are different operational managerial roles which are part of the airport management. So the all of them will be reporting to general management. We'll be looking at the some of the typical operational organizational structures later, but then you can have different managers who oversee different operations, all of them reporting eventually to a general manager. So each of these airport managers, the departmental managers, need to make sure that the facility or the activities under their section proceed smoothly and efficiently. Now, having said this, another aspect which sort of complicates the airport management is that usually the staff, if you go by the number of staff within an airport, typically it is said that it could be 80, 85, sometimes 90% the staff which belong to various organizational stakeholders than the airport staff. That is, the staff who are actually in the payroll of the airport itself, maybe 10 to 15% or 20% at the most. So the rest, remaining 80-85% could be staff who belong to various categories: airlines, security staff, government staff, regulatory staff, etc., or and various other service providers, etc., who are actually not in the payrolls of the airport. Now, despite this diversity, or rather, this diversity also has to be handled by the proper managerial roles within the airport. So, what it means, the airport operation management. So, if you were to put that in a single sentence, it means supervising the coordination between the operations in the airport. So, we have just mentioned about different operations, ensuring that all of them are functioning with a coherent structure and running with mutual coordination and progressing smoothly. And most importantly, the security requirements and the enforcement, the adherence to the rules and regulations pertaining to the functioning of the airport are being followed strictly. So the operating, so obviously the role of the airport operations manager or manager, yes, it's important from the coordination of the various functions within the airport. And the persons in that role need to have extensive knowledge about the functioning of the airport, and also about the requirements, priorities, and the functions of individual departments. All that should be clearly known to the operational manager, and also the person obviously need to have good management skills. Airside operations, landside operations, we have discussed them. Billing, invoicing, we'll be discussing. Information management, to some extent, we'll be looking at later. So if you just try to categorize the airport operations, these can be the four categories of them. Now, we have been earlier categorizing it as to airside and landside operators. Now, so billing and invoicing, information management, these are being separately categorized because of the operational differences, or possibly the operational managers who will be having these will be different. So functionally, these can be considered as the various airport operations. And whoever is, by the way, any questions so far? And requirements, operators or the expectations from them are quite obvious. Provide safe and efficient airport operations. Safety first, efficiency second. No, these two should go hand in hand. One cannot sacrifice one of the factors for the other. That is, safety cannot be sacrificed for efficiency. Efficiency cannot be sacrificed for safety. But all the time, safety and reliability comes first in the consideration, and then efficiency. So, if at all there is any conflict in the two, then they have to be appropriately handled and resolved. And needless to say, they meet the requirements and needs and expectations of the various users, the passengers, airlines, cargo, etc. On the specific to the airport operations, that is, sorry, airside operations. That is, a manager who is in charge of airport airside operations should oversee activities in the airfield, apron, safety and security of them. So all this pertaining to the air side has to be taken care of by the airside operations manager. And which also, if you were to go to the specific requirements of specific areas, it includes allocation of aircraft parking, that is parking spaces within the apron for various airlines to park their aircraft. So this also, as we have discussed previously about the use of gates, there can be MOUs, there can be business contracts which dictate what should be the preference, priority, or the sharing that has to be given for any aircraft company or a given airline company to use the parking. Of course, parking also comes with the fee which the airline company has to pay to the airport. So depending on the availability and the kind of contract with the specific companies, there should be appropriate allocation of aircraft park. Then conducting time to time periodic checks and ensuring safety of the runway and taxiway by proper inspections. So ensuring that the runways and taxiways are in good condition, including their structural integrity, and also ensuring that there are no obstructions, etc., on the field. Policing airside driving, that is any driving of say movement of vehicles, including small trucks which are used for loading, unloading, loading the aircraft with food and stuff like that, or cargo, and also the check-in movement of check-in luggages, etc., and also minibuses that transport the passengers from the gate to the waiting airline, etc., waiting aircraft, etc. All the airside driving has to be monitored as well. And then vehicle escorts for companies and contractors requiring airside access. That when there is an organizational inspection or access required, that has to be facilitated also. And then management of wildlife to reduce the risk of movement of birds and other animals, etc. Possible interference with the runways and also in the airfield that is above the runway, to ensure that no such incidents take place. And in the event of any incidents, accidents, emergencies, etc., making appropriate timely response to all of the activities which requires close coordinations with various other departments which are probably also external to the airport. So all these come under the purview of airside operations management. Continuing, ensuring runways and taxiways are open and clear. We have just mentioned about the structural integrity and safety of them, and also making sure that there are no obstructions, and coordinating the ground operations, including baggage and catering, where they interface with the aircraft. So that is checking in baggages from the conveyors, etc., and then getting them, loading them onto the aircraft, as well as the loading the aircraft with the food material supplies from the catering agencies. Then fueling of aircraft, communication with their air traffic control, and another important aspect of airside operations is coordination of VVIP arrivals. Say, for example, if Prime Minister is visiting, President is visiting, or like cabinet ministers or other chief minister, etc. So when you have any such personalities who require additional safety, security, etc., as dictated by the state or the central agencies, that has to be provided. That has to be facilitated by the airside operations management. So they need to make sure that the aircraft that they come by land with preference, and they get properly escorted out of the airport, etc., and get through all the processes, etc. So depending on the security category, we hear about set plus, etc., that appropriate arrangements, appropriate facilitation of the security, provision of the security, etc., have to be done, and this has to be ensured by the airside operations manager. Now, landside operations are more like customer service role. In fact, airside is also a lot of customer service, because when we say customer, as far as an airport is concerned, the airline companies also are their customers, not just passengers. So whatever you do to facilitate smooth functioning of the aircraft, passenger aircraft, they are actually customer service from the perspective of the airline companies. On the land side, when you say customer, it's mostly passengers, as we have discussed earlier. The terminal landside facilities are the ones which are mostly frequented and most familiar to the passengers. So meeting their requirements, satisfying their priorities and demands, etc., they are all part of the customer service on the land side operation. So overseeing the terminals and properties surrounding the airport, ensuring that there are periodic checks in the various premises of the airport, and then safety and security. It's important on the land side as well as on the air side, and specifically the entire terminal operations, which also include functioning of eateries, the shopping malls, hotels, restaurants, etc., which are all within the terminal, and of course all the ticketing, baggage check-in, security checks, etc. All those operations which are part of the terminal operations, they will all come under the land side operations management. And very obviously, it's crucial because the management or the smooth functioning of landside operations is important, because that's what the passengers experience the most, and that's what, as we have discussed earlier, That's what leaves an impression of the on the passenger about the functioning of the overall the whole airport itself. Billing and invoicing. I guess we'll be discussing a bit more in detail about this. Specifically, we'll be discussing about the revenues of an airport. The airport has aeronautical revenues and non-aeronautical revenues. I'll just leave the words here. We'll discuss them later in a later class actually. What are aeronautical revenues and what are non-aeronautical revenues and what are their relative sizes and importance, etc. Anyway, billing and invoicing handles both all the accounting, auditing, and the handling of bills, cash, the bookkeeping required, and making sure that say like salary distribution, etc., are followed up appropriately and promptly on time. This all come as part of the billing and invoicing, and this all this though all these are part of as a whole the landside operations, this there will be specific, most often there will in particularly in larger airports there will be particular specific operational managers who are in charge of billing and invoicing. Now about the revenues and the types of revenues we'll discuss later. Information management. uh, the most important information with regard to the passenger interface is the arrival and departure information, because that's what is of most importance to the passengers when their aircraft is arriving and when when it is leaving. And this is not only important for the passengers, this is also important for what we have discussed as the meeters and greeters category, that is who come to see of the passengers or come to receive the passengers. So this information, actually managing this information, availing it, making sure that it's being properly displayed and properly monitored and properly adhered to, all this is part of the information management within the system, within the airport. And as we just mentioned about billing and invoicing, usually in larger airports you will have a dedicated management manager for the information department as well, keeping track of the information about the connecting airlines, their schedules, their arrivals, their if there is a delay, the information about that, etc. And this management is important for the timeliness, keeping the timeliness and keeping the timeliness of the sharing of information about the reporters or the. Now, another important classification within the roles of an airport is the categorization as regulatory and non-regulatory roles. In fact, we have touched upon these two categories earlier, but then we are just putting them or just calling them the classifying them into this right now. The aviation authority is obviously a regulatory body. So they are in charge of establishing policies, rules, and regulation for each function. That will anything that could be, say, like landing, takeoff, baggage checking, security, movement of materials which should be allowed, not allowed, etc. All that uh, uh, are part of the rules and regulations, and they are on the side of, or the responsibility of the aviation authority, and they are so they are referred to as a regulatory authority. So they make sure that the rules are in place, they get updated from time to time, and then they are regulated, and they are in need, or rather in line with the requirements of the development of the air services, overall functioning of airport and airlines, and then certification and safety monitoring, etc., of the nationally registered aircraft. So all that come as part of the roles of the aviation authority. So aviation authority has a regulatory role in the airport functions. Now, as opposed to this, an airport operator has no role in the regulatory or does not have a regulatory role, but it's more like an operational role, which makes sure that the management ensures that the regulations have been followed up, or they are strictly there, or the operations of the airport are strictly in adherence, or they do follow the regulations laid out by the regulatory authorities with respect to, say, maintenance and operations of aircraft, providing ATS, that is air traffic control services, with the national flight information in the region, and providing systems and support for fire and rescue services, etc. So all these are part of the operations of the airport, and they are all non-regulatory, and they should be following the regulations laid out by the aviation authority, which is the regulatory authority. We have earlier discussed about the central agencies which report to the Ministry of Aviation, and the various agencies that are in charge of rules and regulations, etc. So when we say and a regulatory agency, these are the ones which come under the which report to the government, which report to the aviation ministry, and they are in charge of the rules and regulations. I guess I'll stop here. If you have any questions, we'll take them up. We'll just clarify about the exam schedules. Any questions about? No. Now about the exams. Yes. I guess I mentioned it as Wednesday, right? Wednesday morning 11 is what I mentioned, right?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any conflict with that, or do you prefer Thursday? Because I saw, in fact, Dr. Kannan had sent the schedule as Thursday. In fact, when we spoke earlier, he said Wednesday is fine, but then formally it is sent as Thursday. So my question to you is: you have two electives. Do you have both the exam on Thursday? As per the schedule, you have it just shows Thursday and the midterm exam, so you are likely to have both the exams on Thursday, right? So
So the other elective we have it on Thursday.
sorry, what did you say, the other elective?
We have it on Thursday, the midterm exam.
So then why not we have it on Wednesday? That's my question, so that on the
Yes.
same day you don't have two exams.
Yes, sir. That is fine, sir.
So if that is okay with everybody, I'll keep the schedule as Wednesday itself, Wednesday 11 o'clock. Is that okay? I'll just mention this to Kannan, and if there is any, yeah, again, like it's a my role is a non-regulatory one in the exam schedule, etc. As Kannan's is regulatory role, so I would, if he has any conflict, or if he says that it's not, it can, because of some reason it should be on the same day, I'll get back to you. But otherwise, as of now, we will stick to our schedule. We'll have it on Wednesday, 11 o'clock. Okay, and then I'll subsequently put the schedule for the schedule for the Vivas. Okay. Is that okay, Sanjay? So for now, shall we?
Yes, sir. That's okay, sir.
Fine. Okay. Thank you. Any questions? If not, we'll stop for the day. This afternoon, again, I will not be taking the class. So we'll meet tomorrow. Tomorrow, if I have an issue, if there is a likely problem, but then if there is anything, I'll let you know a priori. But otherwise, by default we'll meet tomorrow. So as of now, I'll stop this one. I'm not engaging the class now.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, sir.
So any questions? Otherwise, we'll stop for that. Okay then. Thank you. Thanks to all of you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.